something that happened that is not so sweet. Right? Not so sweet at all. In case you have not heard, Briahna Joy Gray has been fired from The Hill Rising. In fact, she announced this on Twitter, and she, Bree actually dropped the receipts to show this as well. It finally happened. The Hill has fired me. There should be no doubt that the Rising has a clear pattern of suppressing speech, particularly when it's critical of the state of Israel. This is why they fired Katie Halper, and it was only a matter of time before they fired me. So let's take a look at this letter here. June 6, 2024, R.E. Briahna Joy Gray. First of all, the first thing I noticed about this piece of communication, it's obvious they don't even know how to spell Briahna's name properly. And she's been working with you for how long and you can't even spell her name correctly? That just goes to show you how much they were paying attention. Bree is on your show, what, Monday through Thursday, at least every morning, Monday through Thursday? Her name is literally on the screen. And you don't know how to spell her name? They misspelled it twice. Dear Briahna Joy, this is 30 days written notice that your consulting services agreement is being terminated pursuant to the provisions of Section 5.3 for convenience. Thank you for your contributions, and we wish the best in your future endeavors. Sincerely yours, Nexstar Media. This letter is corporate as hell. It's so corporate, so corporate. You misspelled her name, and then you say, in pursuant to the provisions of Section 5.3 for convenience. Very corporate, which is what Rising is. Right? Now, I do want to add this part that Bree posted as well. Also, to be clear, Robbie did not know, has objected, and shouldn't be blamed. So I did want to make sure I shared that as well, because I know a number of you probably were like, that damn Robbie. But according to Bree, he does not agree with this. He was not on the show today, but I think usually he's not on Fridays anyway. But according to her, he is not in agreement with what has happened. Now, we knew, or I think most of us had a feeling that this was coming. And it's not just because of the interview that I'm going to show you. A lot of people are saying this is the reason. No, it's usually not one incident, right? It's usually other things that lead up to something. And then eventually they say, this is the final straw. You gotta go. Rising has a history of censoring speech. We'll get into that in just a second, so you can see how they censored other people that were co-hosts on the show. But in particular, Bree's position when it comes to Israel and Gaza, which is similar to a lot of us, I would think, watching this show in particular. Like, I have the same position on Israel and Gaza that Bree does. It was very clear that Rising was not too comfortable after October 7th with some of the things that have been said on the show. I don't know if it was just audience members, which I would say a lot of the audience members agreed with Bree when it came to what was happening to the Palestinian people. But it was very clear that there were some things happening behind the scenes, which I'm going to show you later on as well. But we knew that it was coming. At least I had a feeling that this was going to happen because there was the smear piece that was written about Briahna Joy Gray from the Daily Beast, similar to a smear piece that was written about Kim Iverson when she was a co-host on The Hill. So the Daily Beast puts out these smear pieces about the co-hosts on Rising. And in both of those smear pieces, they said that there are disagreements with the staff. They said that about Kim. They said that about Bree. And that was last year. So I knew, I had a feeling that this was coming. And I wondered how long Bree was going to stay at Rising. I was wondering if she was going to choose to leave at some point or another. But they did fire her. And a lot of people are pointing to this interview here where Briahna Joy Gray interviewed a sister of one of the hostages. And people are saying that this is the interview that made them put their foot down. Let's get into parts of this. There's two parts of this that I want to show you. And then we're going to go into some other receipts as well.
Can't sleep at night. Can't even drink a sip of water because I know that my sister is drinking salt water from the sea, that she's not getting food and the terrorist is eating in front of her face.
Yeah, Yardin, I really hope your sister does get water and food, and I hope that, I'm sure you're aware of the ample reporting of Israel blocking aid, food and water to Gaza in a way that is hurting both the people of Gaza and the hostages, right?
Most of the trucks are getting inside Gaza. I don't know if you saw, but Hamas is blocking them from them civilians. They're
So I think part of the reason why Bree became frustrated during this interview was because this young woman was spewing a lot of propaganda. I mean, we've all seen the video footage of the IDF soldiers throwing humanitarian aid in the water, setting it on fire, sending in roadblocks to prevent the trucks of humanitarian aid from getting through to the people in Gaza. And what does she mention? She mentions, oh, it's Hamas who's preventing this from getting to the people. There's a sense of brainwashing. It seems to run very deep, seems to be very deep rooted here, where whatever the Israeli government tells you is like, you're just supposed to believe it and go along with it and just repeat the talking points and not question and think for yourself when there's video footage right there in front of you and you can't believe your own eyes. So she was repeating those talking points. And I think this is part of the reason why Bree started to get annoyed. And then there's something else that happened.
Not giving their own civilians the humanitarian aid that everyone is so eager to give them. And I'm not against that. I'm a nurse in my profession. I really, truly believe that everyone should live in safety, in health. This is one of the biggest crises that we ever experienced here. But I'm really feeling that everyone is taking care of the Gaza civilians like they should. But what about the hostages? Why
let's talk about how to get the hostages home. I agree.
No, please let me finish. Why aren't the Red Cross is entering the hostages? Why aren't they giving them medications? My sister have a lot of chronic diseases. Why aren't she getting anything? And we know that they didn't get anything.
So first of all, to her point there about the Red Cross, let's talk about the Red Cross really briefly, shall we? Honey, I could have told you if you talk to people that lived in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, the Red Cross did not come through. If you talk to people that lived in Haiti after the earthquake, the Red Cross did not really come through. The Red Cross has been known to pocket money, and this is why I tell you, do not donate money to the Red Cross. Millions of dollars that they got for Haiti. What did they do with all that money? Oh, we built like 5 houses. That's it? With millions of dollars in Haiti? Ask people that lived in New Orleans what happened with the Red Cross during Hurricane Katrina. So there's that. Right? So it was very clear during this interview, she is not willing to put blame when it comes to the humanitarian aid. She is not willing to put the blame on the IDF, who were not allowing the aid to come through. That was not Hamas. That was the IDF. And the only way that you pretend that did not happen, or you choose to unsee it, is if you are deeply brainwashed and you have been convinced that everything that Israel does is right and everything that happens in Gaza is wrong. And a lot of people have been conditioned to do this in Israel. That's part of the problem. That's part of it with that interview. There are more things that she said. We're not going to get into all that. It'll drive you crazy. And then there was this part towards the end, this epic moment.
I really do hope that Netanyahu agrees and Israel agrees to the ceasefire deal that could bring all the hostages, including your sister, home. And I'm sure many people watching are praying for her safety.
Thank you. Me too. And I really hope that you specifically will believe women when they say that they got hurt.
All right. Thanks for joining. Stick around. More Rising coming up next.
So the moment there that people are pointing out is that Bree rolled her eyes when she said, believe women. Look, I can go back to the interview that Bree did on Bad Faith when she was talking to, I think, a former State Department official when he said the women and children in reference to Ukraine, and people were picking on her then. The NAFO trolls on Twitter were picking on her, saying she rolled her eyes at the death of children. You know, interesting how some of those same people are doing a lot more than rolling their eyes when it comes to the death of Palestinian children. But that's another issue. But the reason why this is happening, the reason why Bree obviously rolled her eyes is because it is a BS talking point. You know, it's believe women unless it's women that you don't like, or if it's women that are a certain race or a certain ethnicity, or they're a part of a certain political party. It's believe women until it's Tara Reid. Hello? Can we say it again? It's believe women until it's Tara Reid, right? It's believe women until it's the Palestinian women that have complained about being assaulted by the IDF. It's believe women until it's someone that you don't like. That is why I believe she rolled her eyes. Not to mention that story, the New York Times article, has been debunked over and over again by other outlets that there was no proof, no evidence that that even happened on October 7th. You tell me why the New York Times decided to fire the so-called journalist after they got heat for that article, who, by the way, was a former IDF soldier. Just happened to become a journalist after October 7th. Okay. I'm going to tell you what I think of this. Because some people may have seen this interview and they said, well, you know, it's good that they interviewed, you know, one of the sisters of the hostages. And I don't think that anyone should be censored. But my little wheels are turning, the wheels are turning, and my spotty senses went off. I told you guys when I talked about this last night, I touched on it a little bit, but I said I did not see the interview. So I didn't want to cover the story last night until I saw the interview. So that's why I'm covering this tonight. So I saw this interview. I watched the full thing. And my little spotty senses, it gives me the impression, I almost feel like this interview was a setup. I almost feel like this was a trap. It's kind of like if you've ever worked for an employer before and you kind of know that your time is almost up. You know, a lot of times when people are about to get fired, you kind of get that feeling. You kind of know that they're going to fire you. I've had former coworkers say this to me, by the way. I've had former coworkers tell me, I think I'm going to get fired. So they kind of, you know, will let you know they're not really feeling you, or they got issues with what you're doing and that kind of thing. Maybe they start to be a little bit more critical of you than usual, those types of things. So you kind of get this feeling that you're about to get fired. I kind of feel like this interview was a trap. I kind of feel like somebody, maybe someone at Rising decided, oh, let's do this interview and get Bree and Robbie to do this interview. Because the reality is Bree didn't have to do this interview. Robbie could have just done this interview. This interview could have happened today, maybe, right? Maybe the other co-host on Rising could have done this interview. But I think this may have been done on purpose to get Briahna Joy Gray pushed out. That's just what my spidey senses tell me. It's a feeling. It's a Pisces thing. So that's the feeling that I'm getting. We can go to the second part for type VNC, Corey or Eric, when you're ready. That's the feeling that I'm getting. So that's why I didn't want to cover it last night, right? Okay. So she said, believe women, right? Peep this, fam. Did you know about this? So this was just announced, right? There is a New York Times article that was just announced titled Inside the Base Where Israel Has Detained Thousands of Gazans. And I'm not going to read it to you because it is too graphic, But he summed up some things here that I'll swap out some of the words. Israel is SAing kidnapped Gazans in the team in prison camp. A Gazan died after penetration by electric stick. A female IDF officer ordered the assault of a senior Gazan nurse. A UN worker forced to sit on a hot metal stick. This is the fourth report of IDF SA this year, and it's a full thread. We're not going to go into the whole thing, but you can read that article from the New York Times. Shout out to Mohammed Shahada for sharing that. So it's believe women until it's those women, right? I don't hear them talking about that. But this didn't start with Bree. She wasn't the first co-host on Rising to be censored and pushed out. We're going to take a little walk in the past. We're going to show you when it happened to Kim. I'm going to show you when it happened to Katie. And then we're going to fast forward and I'm going to show you some other things that have happened with this firing. The first person I remember it happening to was Kim Iverson. It wasn't over Israel. It was over Dr. Fauci. Does everybody remember this? Okay. Let's go back. Kim came on the show to talk about this. Peep this, fam.
Morning. As I'm getting ready to join the show, I get a phone call again from the executive producer, who was the one that called me the night before. And she just said, hey, we talked about this. I ran this kind of up the chain. We discussed this. And we've decided we're just going to go ahead with the Fauci interview as is. We're not going back to the Fauci team. We're not saying anything to them. And I just said, so you want me to come on and record a couple of segments and then you want me to leave so that you guys can interview Fauci? Like, let me get this straight. Like, that's what you're asking of me. And I've been telling the audience for the last year that I'm not censored, that I'm not hindered, that I'm not held back, that yes, I joined corporate media after being an independent person on my own channel for a long time. And then I joined corporate media and I promised the audience that I was not being censored, held back, or any of that goes on in corporate media. How am I supposed to go back to the audience and say, and make that claim anymore after this? Like, because you guys won't go and tell Fauci's team that I'm a host of this show, bottom line.
Right.
And, I just told them the audience won't trust you. The audience won't trust me. There's no way for me to spin this, to make this sound better than it is. And I don't think I can stick around with that. This will be reputation ruining for both of us. And they went ahead. I tried to get them to stop after that conversation. There were still 2 hours in between that conversation. And when Fauci was to appear, I screamed fire over and over at everybody. Like, I was like, guys, stop. Don't do this. Don't do this. I messaged every producer. I slacked the whole team. I emailed the general manager.
She said slacked, not slapped. I just want to let people know that that's slacked. So it's Slack, the app Slack. It's like a communication app.
I mean, I just went try to get them to not. And then when they did the interview, I just begged them not to air it. I just said, guys, don't air it. Don't do this to yourselves. Don't do this to me. Just don't do it. Because I can't come back and be here a part of this if this goes on, because I promised my audience that I would not be censored or held back or limited in any way. And this clearly is that. That is what's happening here. So they made their choice.
They did. They made their choice. Kim, who was probably the most based, most well-researched co-host on Rising about the pandemic. Like, that was her jam. Okay. Like, everybody kind of has their, their spot where they kill it. That was her thing. Whether you agreed with her positions or not, she always backed it up with research. And some people, I think, should go and give Kim an apology, Because I remember a lot of people were smearing her back then. And now we see that Fauci saying some of those same things that Kim was saying back then. She did her research. And out of all the people, the person who was the most knowledgeable about that issue, they pulled her from the interview. They wouldn't let her interview Fauci. She had the most views. Do you guys realize how many viewers she brought over to Rising? Her radars went viral. So first it was Kim. Because see, Sabby remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Then it was Katie. Remember they got to get rid of Katie? Because of Israel. Because Katie prepared a radar where she was going to talk about Israeli apartheid. And they didn't like that. Katie came on and we talked about this as well. I was like, damn, because for a while it was starting to become a thing where everybody was getting removed. All these people were getting removed from the Hill. And this is kind of like, what is happening? What is happening, right? Listen to what Katie said. So one of the things that I think a lot of us were disappointed to see is that you did not get the opportunity to, air your story about Israel and Palestine on the Hill's Rising. But I did get to see it on, I think it was Breakthrough News feature it on there. So I did get to see it and I thought it was very informative. Thanks. And I think back to if only that would have happened on Rising because it's over 1 million subscribers. Yeah. And I've seen some of the comments since this topic has been covered that is very clear to me that a lot of people are just really not aware of the history and what's been happening in Israel. So it's unfortunate that you didn't get that opportunity to air that story because I think it would have been very educational for people. But the question I have is that, do you think, looking back on it, if you did get to feature that story on Rising, do you think it would have made a difference considering where we are today with the war?
Maybe. I mean, maybe more people would have been able to see through Israel's propaganda once they realized that all their talk of being a beacon of democracy was actually just garbage and not true. I think, I'd like to think that maybe people seeing that would make them more critical and questioning of what Israel says and what Israel does, and realizes that when they say they're doing things in the name of democracy, they're not. So, yeah. But I want to give Brie a shout out for fighting the good fight. I think one of the things is that because I made a noise about them not letting me do that monologue, and then they banned me and fired me and pretended it was not for ideological reasons, that makes it, I think, that much harder for them to censor. I think that means that Brie can be strong on this issue without facing consequences, hopefully. Because
unfortunately, though, they made Brie face those consequences as well, as we saw, right? But I think everyone needs to remember, when Katie prepared that monologue, that was before October 7th. And that's why I asked that question, because I felt like if Katie would have gotten the opportunity to share that monologue on Rising, again, they have over 1 million subscribers. When October 7th happened, I feel like more people would have been educated about what was happening in Israel. And that's what pissed me off. And then October 7th happened. Right? But unfortunately, they did end up penalizing Brie for this as well. But it was Kim Iverson, Katie Halper. And I told you it did not start with that interview. Remember, it was just a couple days ago. We covered the debate that Brie had with that panel of Zionists, right? And she was heavily attacked on Twitter after that debate. Days after that debate, weeks after that debate. I think that debate happened a couple weeks ago, but the video was posted later or something like that for whatever reason. But they were attacking her. They were calling her. In fact, you could see when the smear campaign really began. The smear campaign didn't begin after that interview. The smear campaign began after that debate. Now you'll see here, this was Constantine. He said, "No one cares about your race, Briahna. This isn't Harvard." Now, what is he responding to? She said, this is from the neutral moderator of a debate on Israel's genocide in Gaza. You simply cannot argue with racists. On the upside, they will expose themselves. He called her DEI Barbie on Twitter. He said, DEI Barbie is upset. And I got something to say about this as well. People are starting to throw around the DEI term towards Black people to the point where DEI has basically become the new N-word. Everybody notice this? All Black people, we're all DEI now. How was she DEI? Bree graduated from Harvard Law. Constantine dropped out of college. How was she DEI? Bree was a lawyer. How was she DEI? Because when they throw that at you, what they're telling you is that you're not qualified to do what you're doing. And you were given what you were given because of your race, because you were Black. So he wants you to disregard the fact that she was a Harvard lawyer. He wants you to disregard the fact that she was the press secretary for Bernie Sanders' campaign. She wrote for The Intercept, but she's DEI. See how this has started? This whole everybody, all Black people, we're all DEI now. We all got where we are because we're Black. That's what's happening. Oh, you guys are asking what it is? Oh, I'm sorry. DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sorry, guys. I forget everybody's not on Twitter. But diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's what they're doing now. Calling her DEI Barbie. So this is when the smears began. This is what I'm trying to tell you. It didn't start with that interview. And so Bree tweeted, no one cares about your race. She was quoting him. Sir, you literally just called me DEI Barbie. These Zionists are literally so dumb. So this is what I was trying to tell you. It didn't start with that interview. I think it started after that debate. He was the moderator of that debate. He was the one that said that they wanted Danish people because Danish people are civilized. Blatantly racist words that are used. But Bree lost her job. And Zionists like Constantine that are saying racist remarks to Black people on Twitter, they get to keep their jobs. Everybody remember this. Okay, so when people come to you and they say, don't talk about race, just talk about class, everybody remember this. Because she was being attacked here specifically because he was basically saying that she was not knowledgeable enough to do what she was doing, and it was handed to her because she was Black. Lawyers debate. Any of you have been on the debate team, you know that's kind of where a lot of people started, right? Debate team in high school or sometimes college. Lawyers debate. They argue. That's a big part of their job, winning the argument. That's where it started. That's where the smear campaign started. And they put out their little whistle to everybody. Everyone in the network and everybody in the Zionist network just started attacking her one after another after another. All these accounts that popped up out of nowhere that all of a sudden I ain't never seen on Twitter before. All of a sudden, all these accounts were heavily attacking her. Where all these people come from? I click on the account. It says the account was created June 2024. Coincidence? So they sent out the call and everybody came in. Fire her. She should be removed. How dare you? And I just thought it was pretty interesting that interview just happened to happen after she was attacked on Twitter for that debate. And that's why my spidey senses make me think that interview was a trap. We'll get into what I think about Rising in just a second. So you got all kind of people smearing her. You got Nomiki Kunst here. You got Nomiki here, who I forgot existed. And I'm just keeping it real. I totally forgot you were a thing, Nomiki. I remember you used to be on the Majority Report. At one point, you were running for office. I totally forgot who you were for like a year. And here she come out of the woodwork. My people, Bree was a high-paid corporate lawyer until she suddenly and conveniently became a progressive who also echoed our foreign adversaries' reporter disclosed talking points designed to divide the left. She was never our friend. At this point, the reporting is out there. What are you talking about, Nomiki? What are you talking about dividing the left? Didn't you run against a progressive candidate when she was already in the race? What? What? So here is Nomiki trying to use Bree's past against her. She was a high-paid corporate lawyer. What were you? What were you doing before Bernie 2016, Nomiki? This is Nomiki using a purity test. She goes on to say here, look into these people like you never heard of them before and then get back to me. Don't go off of popularity alone. Maybe go back prior to, say, 2017. It wasn't easy to back Bernie in 2016. It was a popularity wagon after. Gives a fuck, Nomiki. Why are you still stuck on Bernie 2016? Did somebody answer this for me? Anybody? Who gives a fuck? What does that have to do with her being fired for criticizing Israel, Nomiki? Everybody got a past. Everybody came from somewhere. Not everybody was aligned. Weren't you working for the Hillary Clinton administration? Weren't you supporting CIA projects in Libya? Okay, so let's talk about what you were doing, Nomiki. So here she come in because she just gotta hate. They all piling on, right? Now let's get into some things about Rising. I told you before that Rising is owned by Nexstar. Nexstar also owns News Nation. Look at something that Max Blumenthal found out. This is pretty interesting. Nexstar, the company that owns The Hill, which censored and fired Katie Halper for a mono on the reality of Israeli apartheid, hired professional Israel lobbyist Jake Novak as deputy editor. And it looks like Max had receipts here. Defending Israel against media bias, presented by news producer Jake Novak. So everybody see this? So now you're seeing the people behind the scenes. Let's go to the other receipt here. News Nation announces key editorial hires and expansion of production facilities in New York and DC. Right down here at the bottom, Jake Novak named deputy managing editor. It's all behind the scenes, right? So the Daily Beast smear piece against Briahna Joy Gray that said there were staffers that were not happy with her content about Israel. Wonder who that could have been. Doesn't necessarily have to be someone working for Rising. Remember, Nexstar owns Rising. And another thing I want to point out as well with Nexstar, we can pull this back up. The Hill Rising is corporate. It's corporate media. It's not independent media. It is what it is. And some people did not know that. Some people thought they were independent. News Nation is also not independent. Nexstar is corporate. Always remember that. It's like they're corporate media, but they try to, they're supposed to try to discuss the stories that independent media may not be willing to discuss. They've had different producers over the years. It was a different team there, from what I understand, when Crystal and Sagar were a part of Rising than it is now. So things have definitely changed. Now, Nico had a really good point when we talk about behavior. Some of the comments that people said to Bree, I can't show you on here because they were using the N-word. There were people calling her the N-word. Zion is calling her the N-word on Twitter. All those kinds of things. Let me show you what Nico said. Not for nothing, but I remember when Robbie lost his mind and literally cussed Bree out on camera only to return to work the very next day, if I'm not mistaken. But Bree rolls her eyes after being personally attacked and gaslighted for 20 minutes straight, and she's immediately fired. So please tell me again, how is there not a double standard for Black women and women of color in general on camera? Everybody remember that? Everyone remember? I think we talked about on this show when Robbie screamed at Bree and cussed her out and stuff. And what did I tell you then? I said he can get away with it. What people have to remember is that it is a lot harder for Black people in this space. And it's even harder for Black women. I can tell you that from first experience. And what people also have to remember is that had it not been for people like Bree, a lot of us that you saw on Rising, you probably would have never seen on there. Because when Bree became a co-host on Rising, she decided to recommend different voices so that you didn't hear from the same academics. You didn't hear from the same, bougie mainstream media folks. That's how you got to see me on Rising. That's how you got to see Nick, my comrade from RBN on Rising. That's how you got to see Max Blumenthal. That's how you got to see Pasta. It was Bree who recommended those other voices. These are some of the things people may not realize. You never saw me on that show before Bree was a co-host. Never. And they never reached out before she was a co-host, just in case you were wondering. Not once. She pushed for that. So I think sometimes what people may not understand is that whether you agreed with her positions or not, when she got to that spot, unlike some people, because some people, then they worry about themselves. When Bree did get to that spot, she didn't pull up the ladder behind her. And it's easy to do that in this space. A number of you reached out to me and said, you found me because you saw me on Rising. A number of you. But you won't see me on there again. I personally would not feel comfortable going back on Rising because of what has happened. And not just because it happened to Bree, because it's happened to 3 people that I know of. 3. So I personally wouldn't feel comfortable. Why would I feel comfortable now going back? I have the same position on Israel and Gaza as she does. So why would I feel comfortable? I would not. And apparently some of you don't feel comfortable either. Shout out to the gentleman who sent me this earlier today. Last night, I told you, I said, let's look at Rising's numbers and see where they are now. Last night, they were at 1.97 million subscribers. They are now, according to Social Blade, we'll go and check the dropout here. I'll make this bigger for the people in the back. Sometimes you got to put on the glasses. According to Social Blade, look at this. Rising gained 10,000 subscribers Wednesday, June 5th. 10,000. They lost 10,000 on Thursday. They have already lost 10,000 subscribers. Now, some of that may be from some of the people may have unsubbed because of they didn't like the interview with the sister of the hostage. Some may have unsubbed from that. But I'm willing to bet, based on the comments I'm about to show you, I'm willing to bet most of the people unsub because they fired Bree. Just like people unsubbed when they got rid of Katie. People unsub when they got rid of Kim. So they've already lost 10,000 subscribers. So apparently, I guess some of you were pissed off as well. And if you go to this video, the very first one that they dropped today, I'm just going to go to the comments. Roger Meadows is going to laugh at me because he always says, Sab, you say you don't read the comments. I usually don't, but I did today. This video here, Columbia settles elite school caves to students who sued over safety amid Gaza protests. Let's go to the comments. And I forget how they show the comments up here. Eric, can you help me? Can you get to the comments on here? I always forget how to find them on. Oh, here we go. Never mind. Okay. So, fam, these aren't my comments. Look at what people said. The first video they dropped today. I agree. Time to bail on this trash propaganda channel. Robbie fans can catch him on Reason. Here's another one. Unsubscribe. Another one. You guys are not for free speech. Go away. You still did never apologize for Robbie cursing at Briahna multiple times on air. I hope she brings a lawsuit. Unsubscribed. Unsubscribing from the Hill, firing Bree, and I'm no lefty. You fired Bree. I unsubscribe. They fired Briahna, who runs this shit show. Boycott the Hill. Unsubscribe now. Time to rename the new show Rising Israel. Might as well call this Normie News now. Free Palestine. I can go on and on and on and on and on. Okay. And we'll end with this one, who apparently this person is right wing. Apparently, The Hill has fired / lost Crystal Ball, Sagar Enjeti, Kim Iverson, Katie Halper, Briahna Joy Gray. It's time to boycott Rising. So again, the people are not happy. The people are not happy. What is that show going to be like now? I don't know, because I won't be watching it. And I won't be going back on it either. That's for sure. What is that show going to be like? Anybody? Anyone know? Let's look at the views. How did their views? Let's check out their views today. Let's see what happened. Because Rising should be ashamed of itself. I give 0 fucks. I don't know what that was. But let's look at the views and see how their view count went today. Is this the Hunter Biden one? Naomi testifies. So that one got like 117,000 views. This one here, 8.4K views. I think that was a live testimonial. Yeah, that's the Hunter Biden thing. This is from today. Yep. 4.2K views, 15K views, 2.6K views, 24K views, 4.1K views, 6.6K views. So you can see what's happening there. Again, they have over almost 2 million, but they lost 10,000. And then there's this. Candace Owens has announced that she would like to interview Briahna Joy Gray. So she said, hey, Bree, would love to interview you. Feels like that could be fun. Feels like that could be fun, Candace Owens said. So I would say, for people asking, should Briahna Joy Gray do that interview? I would say if Bree does that interview, definitely make sure that you hold Candace's feet to the fire. I would not do that interview and just be like, yeah, let's just have a fun time and, just chat and stuff. All the things that you have been critical about Candace over before in reference to policy, these policy conversations, I would bring those issues up. If that were me, I would not do it. I would bring those issues up. I would also ask this question. Why not reach out to Bree before this happened? Why not interview Bree before she got fired from Rising? right? So is Candace trying to, extend some type of olive branch towards Bree? Maybe. Because they have this thing in common now. Or is Candace trying to get the bag? Is Candace reaching out because she genuinely is concerned and cares about what happened to Bree? Or is Candace reaching out because Bree is trending? These are questions we have to ask. Some people don't like that. Some people don't like to ask these questions, but these are questions that we have to ask. But Rising firing Bree, all that did was make her more popular. I'm willing to bet she probably has more subscribers, probably got more subscribers recently because of this. They keep trying to cancel people. And a lot of times it just makes them more popular. So to me, I feel like Rising is done. They had multiple opportunities. At one point, Rising was a powerhouse show. Like when they had Bree and Kim on at the same time, I thought that was fire. I thought that dynamic between Bree and Kim was pretty based. They messed that up. And it's very clear that they're not pro free speech. Now, Dave Rubin, I was going to show you the tweet that he made about Bree when she got fired, but he deleted it because he's a coward. Dave Rubin was cheering on the fact that Briahna Joy Gray was fired. All these people from the Daily Wire and other sources that claim to be so pro free speech, all of a sudden, they're not pro free speech when it comes to Israel. And I had said this before, that both sides have their own examples of cancel culture. So a lot of those voices were full of shit. Now, people can say what they want to say about me, but when Candace got fired, I came on the show and I said, that's not right. You can't do that. That's censorship. She does not have to be pro-Israel to be on a platform. I didn't agree with that. And people said, no, Sabrina, don't go defend Candace. No. Listen, I said that part. And then I also went on and said the other parts, other issues that I had with Candace when it came to policy and the way that she tried to sidestep the Black community. I also talked about that as well. But I was consistent when it came to this particular issue. And I was consistent because I said it does not matter if you like Candace Owens or not. What was done to Candace Owens was wrong. And if you want to be happy about her being canceled because you don't like her, then what are you going to do when it happens to someone that you do like? And then this week that happened to someone that a lot of people do like. It happened to Bree. So people can say whatever they want about me, but I was consistent on this issue. That's when you put the personality aside and you look at what was done. And I don't agree with deplatforming people. I don't agree with cancel culture. I don't agree with this, whether I like that person or not. Because silencing Candace, because I saw that silencing Candace was just a step or just a week or so away before they try to silence all of us, whether we worked for the Daily Wire or not. But The Hill, you should be ashamed. It's embarrassing. Not cool at all. Not cool at all. Don't have to worry about me coming back on there again. Don't have to worry about me watching it again. I'm good. It's really messed up. Really messed up, man. So if they do it to them, they can do it to you. Always remember that. You ain't got to like the person to pay attention to what's happening to them. So I think that Bree will be fine. She has her own podcast, Bad Faith Podcast, which she had before she was a co-host on Rising. You guys can always still watch Bree on Bad Faith. Most of you were already watching that anyway. But I did reach out to Bree and, I did tell her, I was like, you don't need them. They were lucky to get you. You don't need them. Really. You don't. I said the same thing when it happened to Kim. You don't need them. So some people didn't realize that Bri and Kim already had their own shows before they were hosts on Rising. And Kim Iverson is doing really well, particularly on Rumble. So I think she's proven that she does not need Rising. So there you go. She'll be all right. She'll be all right.